Everyone in the village called her a murderer. They spat on the ground whenever she walked past. Some mothers even warned their children, "Stay away from that woman. She killed someone." The whispers followed her everywhere like a dark shadow. But what nobody in the entire town knew was that the real killer was not the poor widow they were blaming. The real killer was someone the whole village trusted. And when the truth finally came out, it shocked everyone. Ngozi had never imagined that life would become so cruel. 5 years earlier, she had been a happy wife living quietly with her husband and their 2 small children. Her husband, Chuka, worked as a motorcycle mechanic in the town of Umuaka. They were not rich, but they were content. Chuka was a hard-working man who always said, "As long as we have each other, we will survive anything." But fate had other plans. One rainy evening, while returning home from work, Chuka was involved in a terrible road accident with a speeding truck. By the time people rushed him to the hospital, it was already too late. Ngozi's world collapsed overnight. The responsibility of raising 2 children suddenly fell on her shoulders. For months, life felt like a nightmare. Bills piled up, food became scarce. Her children often asked when their father would return. Each time, Ngozi forced a smile and hugged them tightly, hiding her tears. But she knew she had to be strong for them. After months of struggling, Ngozi finally found work. She was hired as a cleaner in the mansion of one of the richest men in the town, Chief Okoro. Chief Okoro was powerful. He owned farms, shops, and properties across the region. Many people respected him. Many others feared him. But to Ngozi, he was simply the man who paid her salary. The job was not glamorous. Every morning she arrived before sunrise. She swept the large compound. She cleaned the shining marble floors. She washed dishes that seemed endless. Sometimes she worked until late in the evening. But the pair helped feed her children, and that was enough. Ngozi never complained. She worked honestly and quietly. She never imagines that the same job meant to save her family would soon destroy her life. It was a stormy Thursday evening. Heavy clouds filled the sky, and thunder rolled across the town. Inside the mansion, Chief Okoro was entertaining guests. The men were drinking and arguing loudly in the living room. Ngozi stayed in the kitchen, washing plates and minding her business. She had learned something important about working in rich people's homes. The less you spoke, the safer you were. Eventually, the visitors left. The mansion grew quiet. Ngozi finished her work and prepared to go home. Then she heard something strange, 2 voices shouting upstairs. The voices were angry, furious. One of them clearly was Chief Okoro. The other voice sounded like a man she recognized, Emeka, the chief's younger brother. The argument grew louder. Then suddenly, a loud crash echoed through the house, and everything went silent. Ngozi's heart started beating rapidly. She hesitated for a moment, then she slowly climbed the staircase. "Chief," she called softly. No response. She pushed open the bedroom door, and what she saw made her scream. Chief Okoro was lying on the floor. Blood spread beneath his head. His eyes were open but lifeless. Ngozi staggered backward in shock. Her mind raced. What had happened? Was he attacked? Was someone still inside the house? She turned toward the door to run, but before she could take a single step, the front door burst open. Police officers rushed inside. Someone had already reported the incident. Within minutes, they were standing in the bedroom, and when they saw Ngozi beside the body, everything became clear to them, or so they believed. The police didn't ask many questions. They simply looked at the scene. A dead man, a frightened woman standing beside the body, blood on the floor. To them, the conclusion was obvious. "Ngozi, you are under arrest for murder," one officer said. Her eyes widened in disbelief. "Murder? No, I didn't kill him," she cried, but nobody listened. The police placed handcuffs around her wrists. The news spread through Umuaka before sunrise. The widow killed Chief Okoro. The rumor moved through the town like wildfire. Some people said she killed him for money. Others said she had been secretly angry about her wages. Within hours, the entire village believed she was guilty. And just like that, Ngozi became the town's most hated woman. Prison was worse than Ngozi had ever imagined. The cell was small and overcrowded. The air smelt of sweat and despair. Some prisoners laughed when they heard her story. Another murderer, they said. Every night, Ngozi lay on the hard floor thinking about her children. Who was feeding them? Who was protecting them? Sometimes she cried until her eyes hurt, but no one cared. Days turned into weeks, weeks turned into months. Outside the prison walls, the town moved on. The case seemed closed. Ngozi had become the villain in everyone's story. But somewhere outside that prison, one man was beginning to doubt the truth.
His name was Chinedu. He was a young journalist who worked for a small local newspaper. At first, the story seemed simple. A wealthy man dead. A poor worker arrested. But something about the case bothered him. The investigation had been too quick, too convenient. Powerful men like Chief Okoro often had enemies, yet the police had stopped searching the moment they arrested Ngozi. Chinedu decided to investigate, quietly, carefully. He spoke to neighbors, workers, security guards, and slowly, pieces of a different story began to appear. One name kept coming up in conversations: Emeka, Chief Okoro's younger brother. Several people said the two men had been arguing about money. Others whispered about land disputes and inheritance problems. Chinedu grew curious. Then he discovered something interesting. On the night Chief Okoro died, Emeka had visited the mansion, but strangely the police report barely mentioned him. Why? What were they hiding? Chinedu knew there was only one way to find out. He needed evidence. While investigating the house records, Chinedu discovered something surprising. Chief Okoro had installed security cameras in several rooms, including the upstairs hallway. But the police had never released the footage. Why? Chinedu managed to obtain the recordings secretly. When he pressed play, his heart nearly stopped. The video showed everything. Chief Okoro and Emeka arguing violently inside the bedroom. They shouted about money, about property, about betrayal. Then suddenly, Emeka pushed the chief during the fight. The old man stumbled backward. His head struck the corner of a wooden table. He collapsed instantly, dead. Emeka stood frozen in shock. Then panic took over. He ran out of the room and fled the house. Minutes later, Ngozi entered the room. And shortly after that, the police arrived. She had unknowingly walked straight into the scene of a crime. When the case returned to court months later, the entire town gathered. People expected to see Ngozi sentenced. Instead, they witnessed something shocking. Chinedu presented the security footage. The courtroom fell silent. The judge watched carefully. Gasps filled the room. For the first time, the truth was revealed. Ngozi had never killed anyone. She had simply been in the wrong place at the wrong time. The real killer had been hiding in plain sight, Chief Okoro's own brother. Emeka was arrested immediately, and after nearly a year behind bars, Ngozi was finally free. The government publicly apologized for the mistake. Ngozi received compensation for the months she had spent in prison. But the greatest change came from the people of the town. The same villagers who once mocked her now greeted her with respect. One evening, journalist Chinedu asked her a question. How did you survive all that suffering without losing hope? Ngozi looked toward the sunset. Then she smiled softly and said something the town would never forget. Lies may run fast, but the truth will always catch them. And this time, the truth finally did.